as you probably know, if you've been in English classes before, content is always organized thematically. So it's not like week 1 you learn the simple past, week 2 simple future, week 3 conditionals. Okay? This drives me mad. A lot of academics in UCD, they ask me, Paul, how long does it take to get through advanced level? Right? And you understand, because you're all language learners. That's such a stupid question. How long does it take? You don't know, right? It depends on the person, exactly. So it's not like you learn one thing, you go on to the next thing, you go on to the next thing. We learn by actually making connections in our brains. Little synapses fire, connections happen. So all of the language is linked thematically. And that is to allow you to recycle language a lot. So when you're reading something that relates to something you listened to. And when you're speaking about something you just listened to or read about. When you use grammar, it's grammar that you can use in a context. So it's all very contextualized. It's 120 hours. Normally a course of this type would be 120 hours. So we have split that into 3. So each of our course stages would be 40 hours. Okay, so 40 hours. So that's, I'll give you the timings in a while. Okay, so there'll be three different chunks. Obviously, it has an aim of being preparation for an examination. However, I don't know if you know about IELTS. Have you come across IELTS? Yeah. It's quite different than IELTS. So the difference is, IELTS is a multi-level test. And it goes from 0 to 9. And it's meant to catch your level, no matter what level you're at. And it's mostly for the purpose of either, the most common use is to get into education, or probably to immigrate or emigrate. It's less often used for a CV, okay? Although it can be used. In my opinion, for those reasons, IELTS is a little bit dry. It's not as enjoyable as a course, because everything is geared towards the exam. So you don't learn to do anything that doesn't help you that doesn't lead you to the exam. Okay? It has less real life, real world application. Also, as well, because it's not leveled, in an IELTS exam class, you can end up doing a lot of things that are below your level or above your level to prepare for the exam. The advantage of a course like this is that you are all the time learning advanced level English. Even if you don't decide to take the exam, you're still actually studying and enjoying and learning it. So very often people who take a course like this, they do it for longer, they do it with more enjoyment, and they aren't always really thinking about doing the exam, but they do the exam and they're ready. People who take IELTS often just do IELTS 6 times until they get the course score that they want, and they stop. They go, oh, they forget everything.
Yeah.
Okay? Oh, that's familiar to some of you. Yeah. So actually, forgetting about this as an exam prep course, it's actually a more enjoyable type of course. So, you know, the contents are actually quite normal, not very dry, typical of what you would see in an interesting English language class. So just to tell you about the exam, if you were thinking about taking the exam, there are 4 papers: reading and use of English. Use of English is a test of vocabulary and grammar, mostly. Okay. Writing, the writing is general purpose, so it's things that you would actually do in your daily life. Yeah. It would be things that you do in your daily life. So actually the writing is much more usable to the average person than, let's say, IELTS. Because IELTS would be describing a graph or describing a chart. to try to get into a university. Okay, listening, okay, it's going to be at an advanced level. So it's going to be, things that you would do in your everyday life. It's going to have a range of context, a range of accents, different types of interactions. And the other thing is that speaking is a lot more interesting because the speaking test is actually done in pairs. So a lot of the speaking practice that you do in an advanced English class would be practicing actually interaction. In life, we don't always get the chance to speak alone. We don't tend to speak in like a monologue. Very often we're interacting with someone. So you learn the skills of interrupting or agreeing or interacting with someone, negotiating, all the different things that actually happen in real life. So speaking is a much more kind of generalizable skill in a course like this. If you did want to take this exam, it happens regularly, probably 5 or 6 times a year, and it's easy to do. Okay? But your teacher, when they get to know you, when you start to be assessed through us, you'll get a sense of when you might be ready to take the exam and get a good grade and pass it. It is a very well-respected qualification. If anyone sees that on your CV, there really shouldn't be any question about your English language ability. Even just a pass grade is fine. I would think it's eligible for entry to university, for immigration purposes, and also the Cambridge brand as well is quite strong. Now, just tell you a little bit about the Advanced Business English. So again, this is quite targeted to a type of person who would benefit from this. There are many people in Ireland nowadays who are very successful in their career. They're very well able to interact in their work, but they need a little bit of structure in terms of helping them to kind of get through daily tasks. And also as well to be able to show on paper that they've actually got a certain level of English. And that's what this course does. So it's at a B2 level. The rating for this is 65 to 72, according to the range that Pearson, the publishers, reckon, which puts it at an advanced level. Again, it's thematically organized, so money matters, give and take, market research. Those are some of the titles of the modules. Again, it has 3 stages of 40 hours each. And there is an exam, there is an associated exam called the BEC, so that's the Business English Certificate at the Applied Language Centre. Now, a course like this, if you are improving and if you are able to kind of successfully navigate a course like this, then that would imply that you could probably take an exam like this at the correct level without too much preparation, and if the exam goes well on the day, you should get a very good grade. Okay? So the Business English Certificate, it doesn't test any skills that wouldn't be covered in this type of course anyway, if you know what I mean. So that's probably something, if you're interested, to speak to your teacher about, if you were feeling good about your business English level and you wanted to go on and take a certificate, you could do that. The required text for this is this one here. It's called Business Partner. It's at B2 level. And it's very engaging. These are recent editions. They're right up to the minute. There's, sometimes you look at business English books and they look so dated. It's like the power of the internet. It's written 20 years ago. But this has actual business topics. But when I say business topics, it is appropriate for the average working person. So sometimes you'll see business English books and you read them and they're kind of written for high-level executives. Has anyone studied business English before? No. You have?
But
Yeah. Do you remember what book you used?
I'm not sure.
Not sure, yeah.
Long time, yeah.
There's one called Market Leader, and it's very difficult. It's got articles by, from the Financial Times and books like that. So it's quite business heavy, if you know what I mean. So you almost need to know a lot about business. Whereas this book here is much more appropriate to the normal working person who's working in a company, who knows enough about business, but it would be about the day-to-day skills of managing your workload, interacting with people, communicating well. So the texts are quite relevant. So if I just flick through here, so we've got things like problem solving, attitudes to health. Okay, so all quite standard topics. There is grammar, there is vocabulary, but as I said, the good thing is that it's related thematically. So you have plenty chance to actually recycle the things that you learn. The most important thing is that probably the thing you can do in a class that you can't do on your own is actually speak a lot, unless you feel comfortable speaking to the mirror. But my philosophy is actually you probably don't get good at speaking unless you mean what you say, unless you're saying it in a real way to a person who's actually listening, and unless you have a chance to interact with someone. It can be very difficult to learn a series of phrases from a book and then hope that you'll get a chance to use them in life. What works much more quickly is the chance to actually use it. So the most common types of business English speaking activities that you'll see would be role plays, obviously, presentations, meetings, discussions, that type of thing. Okay, and whatever the average working person needs to do in their life to get through, their career. Any materials that are used in class are actually also available through the portal. So if there are listenings and speakings, that word? No, recordings, texts, there are extra exercises, reading and listening, banked materials, and those are all available through here.
The assessment will be online on internet?
The assessment, our own assessment is done in class. It's ongoing assessment. And also like assignments like essays and writing and things like that. But it's quite informal. If you decided to do the formal test, that's in person, usually on a Saturday. So like a sit-down, scary test with a clock. Okay? So that's the formal test. But for us internally, it's just ongoing assessment. It's what we call formative assessment. It's to help you improve. Yeah. That's great. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.